So you've been told you have IBS, or maybe you're struggling with IBS-like symptoms. You have tried cutting out gluten, cutting out dairy, going to low FODMAP, elimination diets, antacids, buscopan, or maybe you've even been just told to manage your stress. And the probability is that you are still struggling with things like bloating, fatigue, irregular bowel movements, struggling to eat outside the house without many issues, struggling to wear the clothes that you want to wear, and really just not feeling yourself. And this is exactly what this video is about, because IBS is not a diagnosis. IBS is simply a label for a collection of symptoms that are happening with technically no known root causes. For so many people, that looks like going through months and years of managing symptoms without actually figuring out what's going on. Before I get into it, if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a female functional health coach that works with women around body composition and health goals. I come from a background in medical science, and in that career, I worked a lot in the differential diagnosis between IBD, which are those autoimmune conditions such as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, and IBS. From this work, I know exactly how IBS is managed, and it can be incredibly frustrating when you are dealing with these things every single day. They're affecting your life and there's no real answers for you. I've also been through this myself personally nearly 4 years ago when I started experiencing all of the weird and wonderful symptoms that come with gut issues. I was bloated all the time. I was reacting to foods I had never experienced issues with before. I gained weight. I felt inflamed. I had so many issues that honestly massively affected my confidence. And from there, that is the reason I spent so much time understanding, educating myself, and starting to work with women around these problems, because to me, it is not just about digestion. It's about how you feel every day, how it's affecting your life, how it's affecting your ability to show up. And that shouldn't be something you have to live with. IBS affects 1 in 10 people, and the majority of those are actually women. I'm sure if you're listening to this, the main things you have been told is to watch your diet, increase your fiber, reduce your fiber, manage your stress, take medication, but no one is actually asking why this is happening. And that is the most important thing to recognize. All of those things help to manage symptoms, maybe potentially short term, but they're not actually fixing the root cause. There's one thing I wish more people realize is that the food you are eating isn't necessarily the problem. Of course, if you're somebody with celiac disease, we've got intolerances around dairy or gluten, potentially that can be a contributing factor. But our gut environment is where the issue is. And until we're addressing that, you will stay managing symptoms forever. What you may find if you are experiencing these things is that it isn't just showing up in your digestion. It's showing up in your mood, or maybe increased levels of anxiety. Maybe it's showing up in your menstrual cycles where you're seeing these irregular cycles. Maybe you're experiencing skin issues, which honestly have such a huge link to our gut health. This for me is why it's so important to understand why these things are there in the first place and not just try to manage these symptoms. Probably sitting there wondering, well, if I don't just manage symptoms and cut out these trigger foods or go to low FODMAP or try elimination diets, what is my other option? And this is where functional health comes into it massively. This is how I healed my IBS, and it's how I work with many clients around these conditions. When we look at conventional medicine, IBS is a diagnosis of exclusion. So they will look at things like maybe potentially a colonoscopy. They will look at maybe stool tests for things like calprotectin or H. pylori. And when these things are kind of ruled out, that is where the label of IBS comes into it. Functional health looks deeper. It looks at understanding what is driving that issue in the first place. It looks at comprehensive stool testing. It looks at a top-down approach, understanding what is driving your symptoms, what caused that to be there in the first place, healing that gut function, and getting you to a place where you're able to rebuild your gut health and actually live a normal life. So when we talk about IBS, what are the actual root causes? So what is causing your gut to react this way? What is driving all of those symptoms in the first place? If it's not the food, if it's not stress, and I will say stress can have a massive impact, but it's not always the only thing. But if these aren't the problem, then what is happening? And this can be different person to person, and that is always why I will test and not guess. Because you can spend so much time going around in this loop of trying different probiotics, different fiber supplements, maybe de-bloat drinks, whatever that may be, and it's honestly just wasting your time, money, and precious energy. When we look at the root causes behind those IBS symptoms you are experiencing, some of the most common ones I see are things like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, pathogenic bacteria, things like gut dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of that good bacteria to that bacteria we don't want in such high amounts, things like low stomach acid, parasites, gut immune dysfunction, gut nervous system dysregulation. As you can see, there are so many different things that can be driving it for you, but what's so important to recognize is you can understand these and actually address it. As a coach myself, the main testing that I use is a GI360, which is a PCR-based stool test that gives us a full overview of everything that's happening. Blood testing can be incredibly useful as well, but this is how you're going to understand it for you. Now, I'm sure your next question is, once I understand what is driving it for me, how can I then address it? How can I heal my gut? How can I get back to normal living? How can I start eating foods without having to worry about bloating or the clothes that I'm wearing? And unfortunately, this really depends on what is driving those symptoms for you. This is exactly the work I do as a coach, and I have worked with many women around IBS and IBS-like symptoms to actually understand what was driving it for them, to be able to solve and address and heal their gut so that they could live a normal life. Get them to the point that they are back feeling their very best. And really what I want you to take from this is that these things that you are experiencing daily, these things that you are just trying to manage, these things that are affecting how you are showing up or how you're feeling day to day, are absolutely addressable. If it is something you are struggling with and don't know what the next steps to take are, I have a link within my bio that you can inquire to work with me, and I will have a chat through with you how I would go about this for you. But this video is really just to give you a different perspective on understanding IBS. It is not something that you have to live with forever. It is not a life sentence, and it can absolutely be addressed. And truly, my goal is to ensure that women don't just go through life managing these symptoms and hoping that they will go away. I hope this video has given you a little bit of a better understanding of IBS and what it actually is. Because truly, I would hate to think that anybody would have to put up with what I experienced or what many of my clients have experienced for the rest of their life. Absolutely can heal IBS. So if you did find this video useful, make sure you're subscribed for other videos like this and that you're following me over on Instagram, where I share lots of education around it.